Hey everybody, welcome to Board Game Heaven. My name is Raymond, and in this video I'm taking a look at Copenhagen by Queen Games, made by Daniel Skjold Petersen and Asger Harding Granerud. And this is a tile laying game for 2 to 4 persons, and it plays in about 30 to 60 minutes. Like I said, published by Queen Games. It has a very colorful box with colorful components. So let me explain how to set up and play the game, and I'll give you my final thoughts. Alright, so first of all the box. Copenhagen by Queen Games, designed by Daniel Skjold Petersen and Asger Harding Granerud. So there's a nice cover here, some buildings from Copenhagen with the colored facades. Looks pretty nice. And I did get a bit of a beat up copy because they had this at a convention and it was damaged, so they kind of just gave it to me for my channel so I could do a review. So thanks to Hot Games in the Netherlands. It's really appreciated. And it has a bit of a instruction here, or what the game is about, in 4 languages. And all the components are also listed here. It's a game for 2 to 4 players, ages 8 and up. Plays in about 20 to 40 minutes, so that's relatively fast. Let's open up the box. So, of course, this box is now damaged, so I'll fix that later. Alright, so we've got a couple of punch boards here. There we go. This is the harbor over here, where you will be putting the stacks of cards, like so. We have all these tiles, these tokens. There's plenty of them. And we have the scoring track here, where you can put your color and keep track. Alright, so we have that. We have the player boards in different colors. So this is where you will be putting your tetrasoid shapes, trying to score as many points as you can. So here we go, 4 different colors. And these are, of course, these facade bits, these shapes that you will be using on them. That looks pretty cool. Bright colors. Some have windows, some do not. You can see the brick. That's pretty cool. And they are, of course, double-sided. So I'll punch those out in a bit. We've got the rules in different languages. We've got English, Dutch, French, and German. Along with a big Ziploc bag to put all of these parts in, all these tokens. That's pretty handy. And then you can just stash them inside this simple insert, which does have some nice illustrations, though. I mean, you can see all these buildings around the harbor with the harbor here. I think that's a nice touch. Simple but functional insert, but at least it's, you know, it has nice illustrations. Here you've got the 4 different colors of player tokens for keeping your scoring on that track over there, keeping track of your score. And we have a pack of cards, which are, of course, the cards you will be drawing with all of the different shapes on them. So let's open that up real quick. So we got them in all colors, of course. You get the blue tiles. You've got the yellow tiles, the green ones, and the purple ones, and the red ones. So we have all of those. And then we have this card. Don't know where that is used, what that is used for. And we have, of course, some cards with different games by Queen Games to check out. They probably had some room left on their card sheet, and they decided to just print some titles. So, okay, sure, we have those. That's everything in the box. Let's set up a game. To set up a game of Copenhagen, take the harbor board and the scoring board and set them up in the center of the table. Sort and stack all of the facade tiles by color and shape and just put them in the center of the table as well. There are 4 types of shapes for each color, and there's 3 of each type, except for the biggest one, which is always 5 squares. There's only 1 of those in each color, and there's a couple of those white single square tiles as well. Now in a 4-player game, you use all of those tiles, but in a 2-player game, there are several tiles that you need to remove, as well as in a 3-player game, which is explained in the rulebook. Then you take all of the cards, which also have the colors and the shapes of all of those tiles on them, and you shuffle that deck and you deal out 7 of those cards along the harbor, like so. And again, in a 3-player game, you need to remove 2 cards of each color, which is 10 in total, before shuffling, and return those cards to the game box. And in a 2-player game, you shuffle the end of game card, and you shuffle that in with the top 9 cards from the supply, and place those face down on the bottom of the card supply. In a 3 or 4-player game, that card only comes into play after you've gone through the deck once. And you just place that deck on the indicated spot on the harbor. The other spot is reserved for the discarded cards. Every player chooses a color and takes their respective board and their scoring markers in that color and place them at the start of the scoring track. So depending on the number of players, you'll have a number of those on the board. Then you sort and stack all of the 5 different ability tiles, and you only keep a number of those in play equal to the number of players. So in a 4-player game, you use all 4. In a 3-player game, you remove 1 of each. And in a 2-player game, you only need 2 of each. And then you give this tile to each player. So only those 4 remain on the table. Decide which player starts the game, and that player takes 2 cards from the supply into their hand. That's their initial starting hand. The second player takes 3, and in a 3-player game, the third player also takes 3, and in a 4-player game, the last player takes 4. Once you've done all that, you're ready to play, so let's go and explain the rules. On a player's turn, you can do one of 2 things. You can either take 2 adjacent cards from the harbor, and all of these cards are basically adjacent, but these 2 are not adjacent. So I could take these 2 or these 2, etc. Or I can construct a part of my facade. And how I do that is basically by checking your cards. So let's say, for example, I've picked these 2 cards on a previous turn. Let me explain that first. So basically just take 2 adjacent cards, and after you've done that, you draw that same number of cards from the pile to fill in the harbor again in clockwise order. It's always done in clockwise order, like that. And basically that ends my turn. And if I choose to build a facade, I simply look at my cards, and then I can pay these cards to get a facade tile of an equal size as the cards that I discard, and then I have to place that tile on my facade board over here. So for example, I could say, okay, instead of picking cards, I'm going to play cards. I'm going to play these 3 yellow cards, and I'm going to grab this tile because it's 3 squares big, and I'm going to place this over here on my facade. Now there are certain rules to putting your tiles on your board. Now obviously you always need to align your tile with the squares on the board, and they cannot stick out of the board as well. So that's pretty logical. You also have to place them as far down as you can, just like with actual Tetris, though there is a difference. So I can't place it here. It has to rest on something else, so either another tile or simply the bottom floor. So I could also place my tile like this if I wanted to. And later on, it is also perfectly legal to put a tile like this. So it's not like actual Tetris where you go down and then stop whenever you hit something else. No, I can place it here I just can't place it here because then it would move down one more. But I can totally place it over there. So even when later in the game, for example, I've completely blocked up a part of the board like this, for example, I can still put a piece that fits in here over there. Now, buying a tile is always the cost of the number of squares, except when I buy a tile in the same color that's already on my board and I place it touching that tile. So for example, if I bought this, which is 4 squares, I'd only need to pay 3 if I place it touching this tile. And I can place it like this, that would be touching. I can place it like this, that would also be touching, but these tiles are double-sided, so I can also flip it over and place it like this, as long as one side touches. So not like this isn't touching. It really has to touch a full side of one of the squares, and then I only need to pay 3 cards to get a 4 square block. You can only play one color from your hand to buy one tile on your turn, so you can't buy multiple tiles of either the same or different colors. You can only buy and place one of them during your turn. And you also have a maximum hand size limit of 7 cards. If you do have 6 cards in your hand and you're drawing 2 new cards, you need to immediately discard 1 card before you use them on your next turn to buy something. Whenever you run out of cards to draw from the draw pile, you take the discard pile, shuffle that, and then take the top 9 cards of the newly created draw pile. You take the end of game card and shuffle it in with those 9 cards and put that stack at the bottom of the draw pile. So somewhere in the bottom 10 cards, there's the end of game card, and as soon as that is drawn, the game immediately ends and you start counting up your scores. There are 5 different ability tiles in the game, and every player starts out with one of these. So let me explain those one by one. So this is the any cards tile, and any time during your turn you can play one or more of these tiles to activate that ability. When you do so, you activate that ability and you flip them over to their non-active side to indicate that you've already used that one. So this tile is the any cards tile, and when you perform this action, you flip it over, and then you can, when you do the taking cards action, and so not the building a facade tile action, you can take any 2 cards. They do not need to be adjacent. The additional card tile lets you take an extra card, so a 3rd card from any of these pairs, in addition to the 2 adjacent cards that you pick. And that 3rd card does not need to be adjacent to the other 2. This is the changing colors card, which lets you, when performing the construct a facade option, you may treat your cards of one color as if they were of a different color. So that means if I had cards of different colors, so let's say for example I had this hand, 2 yellow and 2 red, and I had this tile, then that means I could flip over that tile, activate its ability, and turn either the red ones to yellow or the yellow ones to red, and take a bigger tile than I would normally be able to. This is the construction discount action, and when you perform this one, the player may discard 1 fewer card from their hand in exchange for a facade tile, making the tile 1 cheaper. And remember, when putting a tile of the same color adjacent to another tile of that color, it already costs 1 less. So you can add that tile to make a tile even 2 cards cheaper. And finally, there's the both actions tile. So instead of having to choose, you can take both the take cards and construct facade actions, one after the other. So first you take 2 adjacent cards, then you pay cards to construct a facade, and only at the end of your turn you refill the pair with new cards in clockwise order. And that's what all those ability tiles do. Now you'll notice that these boards also have these coats of arms printed on them, and there are several, 4 on the facade itself and 3 over here next to these highlighted rows. And this means that anytime I play a facade tile on top of one of these 4 coats of arms, or when I complete a full row, so let's say for example I've also put this one here. Oh no, wait. This row has a coat of arms. So I filled this entire row, it's complete, and that is next to this coat of arms. Then I may perform one of 3 special actions for each coat of arms covered or each row marked with a coat of arms during my turn. So it could happen that I do those 2 things at the same time. If, for example, my board looked like this and I placed this tile over here, then I would complete this row and also cover up this coat of arms, so I have 2 of those. But for each of those coats of arms, I can perform one of 3 special actions. The first one is to take one of these special tiles, the white ones, and then immediately place them on my board anywhere where I want, as long as they follow the standard placement rules. So I could place one over here or over there or on top of any of the other tiles. And again, if doing so would cover up another coat of arms or complete a row that's next to a coat of arms, I trigger an additional ability. The second ability I can choose from is to take one of those special ability tiles, but you can only have one different tile of each type. So that means if I already had this one, I can't take that one anymore. I'd have to choose another one, and I just add it to my board. And I can use those ability tiles anytime during my own turn to activate them, and then I'd have to flip them over. And the third action I can choose from these coats of arms is to activate all my spent ability tiles again. So if I've already used several or all of my ability tiles that I've gathered during the game, then that ability lets me flip them over again so I can use them once more. Now every time I complete a row, I score 1 point, and that lets me advance my scoring tracker 1 point on the track. If I manage to make a row out of just windows, so like this, then I score double. So that means 2 points for a row like this that only has windows. So then I could move up 2 spaces. If I complete an entire column of facade tiles, then I score 2 points for that column and double that, so 4 points if it's made up of only windows. And the game ends immediately as soon as one of the players reaches the 12th point, or when the end of game card is drawn from the draw deck. A player who reaches 12 points immediately wins the game, but if the end of game card is drawn, then the player with the most points at that time is the winner of the game. And in case of a tie for the most points, the tied player whose house has the fewest empty spaces is the winner. And if that also results in a tie, then both players share the victory. And those are all the rules for Copenhagen. Let's go to my final thoughts. So my final thoughts on Copenhagen by Queen Games. Let's start with the components. So as we are used to with Queen Games, the components are of a very decent quality. The cards are of a very good thickness. They are printed very colorfully and very clearly. And well, the tiles are also of a very nice thickness, very sturdy tiles. Also with the colors printed on very clearly. And well, all of these components are just really good. As we know from Queen Games, the boards are nice and big, all your tiles fit on. These wooden meeples are pretty cool to keep score with. It's the mermaid. And well, that's basically it. The rules are in these leaflets, which is basically just a fold out, which is double-sided. and they come in 4 languages in the game. This copy came with an English, a Dutch, a French, and a German copy of the rules. And that is basically it. So the artwork is, well, there's not a whole lot of artwork in this game. There's, of course, the nice cover, which I really like, by the way. There's the same kind of art on the back of the cards in a nice sepia brown. And the front of the cards are in the color of the card, with all the different tiles that you have of that color printed on them, so you can actually just see on the cards themselves which options you have in that color, and that just works really nicely. I also do like the scoreboard, which also has all the houses, the colorful houses in the harbor, so that's pretty cool. And of course the facades themselves are also all color coded. That just works. So yeah, there's not a whole lot of artwork, but what we have here works very well. The theme is pretty cool. I do like it. I do like, you know, these puzzly kind of games with these tetroid shapes, and you have to puzzle them together to fill your facade and to hopefully make rows and columns that only have windows to score double points, and trying to fill in all the holes. And there's a lot of options you can do. You can even, you know, flip around the tiles if that works better for you. So that is really well done as well. And well, the theme itself, you're building a building. You're building the facade of your building in the harbor in different colors. I'll admit that the theme is pretty loose. It could technically be anything, because you're basically just filling in a rectangle with, you know, these Tetris-like shapes. And that's basically it. But they did choose a fun theme to do it with, and in my opinion, it works really well. I guess it could have been a number of themes, so it doesn't really add to the experience of the game, but it does add to, well, actually I should say it does add to the experience, but not as much to the gameplay itself, if you understand what I mean. So let's talk about the gameplay then. I found this to be really a lot of fun. It is super easy to learn and easy to teach. You teach this in about 5 minutes. All you need to know is what you can do on your turn. It's get cards or get a tile with those cards. The way you place them on your board is very simple and intuitive, and it works nice. You can puzzle them, like I said, you can flip them around and see how that fits. That's a lot of fun. You can match colors to make the tiles cheaper, which is a lot of fun. And you have these special ability tiles that you can use, and then you flip them over, and then you can get those coat of arms tiles as well, these spots on the board that lets you flip them over or get more of those tiles. So there's a lot of cool mechanisms in this game that I really enjoy. And it's just, you know, it's like 12 points. So you'll get there relatively fast. It's not a game that takes too long. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It plays in about 30 to 60 minutes, depending on the number of players. It's pretty fast because you only have one action out of 2. You either get cards or you pay cards to get a tile, and you put that on your board. And you can choose, you know, you can decide on how to place it on your board while other players continue playing. You know, you can just say, okay, I'm taking this one, you go ahead, and then while they take their turn, you're deciding on how to put it on your board. And of course, after you've placed it on your board, you can see if you've scored points and then advance your marker, then that's all fine. So you don't have to wait a long time on another player's turn. So that's good as well, which also adds to the replayability of the game, because, you know, after you've played a game, you're likely to want to play again. It really doesn't overstay its welcome. It's a relatively quick game, and 2 games of this in a row, I would absolutely do that. I enjoy that, and I've really enjoyed my time playing this, and yeah, it's a great game. And I should also mention that there is a roll and write edition of Copenhagen as well, of which I also did a review on my channel, which you can check out if you click the I in the corner of this video, and I will take you there. And the roll and write edition of Copenhagen really does the same thing, but very cleverly made into a roll and write, where you have a sheet with all the different shapes and colors of tiles, and instead of physically taking a tile and placing it on your board, you simply cross off the tile that you bought. Some of them can be used unlimited times, and some of them you have to cross off, and you just draw them on your board. And an X is a spot without a window, and a circle is a spot with a window. So it's very much a more portable version of Copenhagen. It plays a little bit differently, but most of it is the same, just, you know, worked into a roll and write. And I think that's very well done. But I do think they're different enough that you could actually have both of these in your collection and enjoy them a lot. I would usually take the roll and write with me to work, or, you know, when I'm traveling, and use that to play a quick game. And this one is a lot of fun to play at home on your table. Of course, it takes up some space because of all the tiles and the big player boards, and of course the cards that you lay out. But yeah, it's not too big. It should fit on pretty much any table you use. And another thing I should mention about the gameplay is that it's not that much of a take that game, because you don't really take away chances of other people. The worst that can happen is that you're saving up cards for a certain tile, and the player before you just snatches that tile off of the table before you can get it. Now that's a bummer, but that can happen, and there's only one of the 5 square tiles of each color, but the other ones all have 3, and also depending on the number of players that are playing. But if you're playing with 4 players, all of these are on the table. And if somebody else does take a tile that you were setting your sights on, then there's plenty of other possibilities that you can do. You just need to change your strategy. So it's not a very mean game where you're constantly battling for a certain tile or a certain thing, because you're working on your own facade, and that works really nicely. So there's really very little direct conflict in this. You do need to keep an eye on what other players are doing, because like I said, it is a race to that 12 points, because that player immediately wins. So you need to keep an eye on the others, but I also very much enjoy that. Now finally, there's the language dependency. And like with most Queen games, maybe even all Queen games, I'm not sure, this game is 100% language independent, which is fantastic. You just need a copy of the rules in your language, but everything else is fully language independent. It's basically just tiles and cards and yeah, the numbers on your score track, and that's it. And all these ability tiles work with icons, so the iconography is also very clear. You instantly know that this card changes a number of cards of one color into another color, and this card tells you can pick 2 cards from different spots. They don't have to be adjacent. This tells you you can pick your 2 cards and place a tile. So that's all very clear. You know, you get an extra card, or you pay 1 card less to build. Once you know what they mean, it's very easy to remember. So the iconography works very well, and it's completely language independent, which makes the game very accessible. So I really did enjoy this game. I still enjoy this game. I'm keeping it in my collection, and I'm giving it an absolute 2 thumbs up. And I'd also like to thank Hot Games in the Netherlands for donating this copy for me to review. It's very much appreciated. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And if you click the bell icon, you'll also get notified whenever I upload a new video. Please also consider becoming a Patreon saint to my channel, which helps support me and my channel to make more videos. And you'll get your name in the credits as well. The link is in the description below as usual. And you can also click the icon at the end of this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on Board Game Heaven.